1420 WEMB Sports Radio Irwin. Real sports talk. A Jet Broadcasting station.
I want to go down into that mode about the talking about this on Dan Patrick, or actually no, excuse me, not Dan Patrick, but Matt Pauley's sports report, where they were talking about how the Redskins and Falcons, which is understandable why they meet in the preseason, generally speaking, I mean there are exceptions, but generally speaking, you don't have, let's say, you know, an East Coast team playing a West Coast team. And no, I can give you examples where it's happened, but you just generally don't have that in the preseason. I don't want to travel that far. Come on, you know, this sort of thing. And I don't know. Remember when, well, let's see, this does date me, but it's a good history lesson. Years ago, 1990s, when Charlotte was trying to get a pro football team, there was something known as the Backyard Battle, and I believe playing in North Carolina, Keenan Stadium. What do they call it? Keenan Stadium. Keezer was in San Francisco. Keenan Stadium, where the Tar Heels played. I should not have made that mistake, but nevertheless. At Keenan Stadium, they had the Falcons play the Redskins. This was back in the 90s, and I remember getting a cup from a fast food restaurant. I went there, I wanted this cup. Backyard Battle, and it had, you know, celebrated the football game. And North Carolina Stadium isn't all that big. And I think there's a law, in fact, that says they cannot build the stands higher than what the trees are. This is one of the reasons why North Carolina has never won a national championship in football and is considered a basketball school. Hello, I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now, and you can hear it on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio, or you can hear it on www.jetbroadcasting.live anywhere in the world. Or, I don't know, do they have internet access on the space shuttle? They're not doing a space shuttle anymore, are they? They got, you know. But if they ever do it again and all this, and you happen to be on that, or a rocket or something, if they have the internet, there you go. You know, depositing a whale to the moon or what have you, you know, and all the. How many of you know where that's from? Yeah, that wasn't one of South Park's better episodes, I'll tell you. But anyhow. Today I want to begin talking about the XFL. Because they came out with their team names yesterday, and I thought they were pretty decent, to tell you the truth. Talk a little more of high school football, get a little of that going. And we will be, you know, Daniel Norris went 3 innings yesterday against Justin Verlander, and guess what? The Tigers actually beat the Astros. I mean, that's, yeah. We didn't see that one coming. Perhaps they won because he only pitched 3 innings, Marky. Well, by the way, I do want to mention our sponsors. You said high school football tomorrow. 7 o'clock is the kickoff. We will be broadcasting Unicoi County and South Green football. It'll be myself and Andy Slagle, the trooper, will be the color commentator. And we'll be down there at South Green, where I am told the Rebels' uniforms are semi-readable. Unlike last year when they were not readable. I don't even know if the players themselves knew if they were wearing the right numbers, to tell you the truth. But Scotty Variant's team, which advanced far in the state playoffs, just like, hey, both Unicoi County and South Green won TSS AA playoff games last year. UCHS in 3A, South Green in 2A. How can this not be one of the games of the week? Yes, I know Elizabeth and Science Hill are playing. I'm not suggesting necessarily that it's bigger than that. Yes, they play on a higher level, etc., etc. I get it. Okay, sure. You know, South Green played Elizabethton last year, and they lost 45-6. I get it. All right? However, Unicoi County South Green isn't that bad. In fact, it's pretty good. Talk a little bit about whether or not Science Hill and Elizabethton is the new rivalry of the area, I think. One time it was going to be Science Hill Dobbins Bennett. I think now it's probably Science Hill Elizabethton, which is saying something. It's saying really how far Dobbins Bennett has fallen, because historically in the Tri-Cities and Tennessee side, let's put it that way, I don't want to get into Virginia, but if you wanted to weight the programs, so to speak, Dobbins Bennett obviously number one. They were all time in victories until just recently when Maryville passed them by. Tennessee I number two. We've got a national championship in 1971 to our credit. And then Science Hill, who Science Hill has never in football been truly great. I mean, even the Steve Spurrier teams, if you want to say, a Heisman Trophy winner, Marky. Yeah, but if you look at them, I mean, those teams lost their share of games. They didn't have losing records, but they lost their, this wasn't a future, 10-0 every year. That wasn't the case. So Science Hill would be third in hierarchy. And then I guess, we can discuss what it, Greenville, modern day, has got to be coming in. If you want to talk about Upper East Tennessee teams, Elizabethton with Jason Witten and company. Elizabethton, they're usually always good, running at formation, and I've heard that story, And so it goes on that far. But I do want to begin talking about the XFL. The XFL has attempted to do something that's never been done before. I don't think the XFL is going to make it. I'm going to go right off the bat and tell you why, because the league owns all the teams, and that's never worked in the history of American sports. Now, I've got people that try to tell me that, the model, hey, you can't find 8 owners who are all invested in this, and I agree with that. I mean, usually, I was telling you, when history of successful sports leagues, okay? When the American League in 1901 formed, look at that, the American League, okay? You know it, they had 8 teams, and 2 of them didn't last more than 3 years. The Milwaukee Brewers, yes, I know there's a new team called the Milwaukee Brewers, but the original one of 1901, managed by Hugh Duffy, who had .438, a record for the Boston Bean Eaters just 7 years before, they didn't make it. They moved to St. Louis, became the Browns. Now they're the Baltimore Orioles. The other team that didn't make it was the Baltimore Orioles. Yes, another incarnation of the Baltimore Orioles. They basically folded. We had, the author on about the first 20 years, the book about the first 20 years in the New York Yankees. He explained all this. They basically folded, and the American League said, why don't we have a team in New York? Let's put one at Hilltop Park. So there you go. And that's how the Yankees came about. Anyhow, but yeah, 2 of the initial teams, and I mean, it's, when you're a startup league, your team finishes in last place, good luck. Good luck! Oh my, because who wants to get into that? And a good idea, I could give you a lot of examples, but I will say this. American League back then, you did have 6 owners, let's face it, who were invested in and made their franchises successful. Or they were willing to stick with a franchise that maybe wasn't necessarily successful, but they had, they were able to make it. Somebody's got to finish in last place. And you look at the Alliance of American Football, why they didn't make it. I mean, they had they had the Hurricanes owner, he comes in, one big investor puts in, $250 million or whatever it is. He says, you know what, I don't want to lose my shirt. I own all these teams, I'm just going to pull the plug. Now, just similarly, if you have an 8-team league, let's go with 8 teams, that's what the XFL have, and yeah, that first team finishes in last place is probably going, nobody really follows this team, hopefully they'll have a big season ticket push, that'll help it, maybe it'll survive through that. And you then go into, hopefully, a quality game experience and all this. And it doesn't hurt to have, the cheerleaders go through and give all the lonely-looking young men a kiss and blah, blah, blah. It's or whatever. I'm just suggesting what would create, a losing franchise liking them when they're not already established. It's tough enough to get somebody to like them when they're already established, but if they're not, good luck. And the circumstance then comes out where, sure, it makes it very difficult for those teams to prosper. But worst comes to worst, what happens is that initial last place team, the owner says, I've lost all this money. I'm going to sell the team. I can't afford this. This isn't fun. And that's what usually happens. I mean, I mentioned the American League 120 years ago, doing that. But yeah, I mean, this is how initial sports franchises, and now all of a sudden, oh, sure, I'll sell you my team, or maybe you just fold it. And then they find somebody else in another, city, or they go with a smaller amount of teams or whatever. But the league is solvent. You have one owner, he says, I'm losing my shirt, I'm getting out of this. There goes the league. So that's one of many reasons why the league owning all the teams doesn't work. And I could go in on, I could do 2 hours on why that doesn't work. And you know what? I've worked in minor league baseball under a league in which that was the model. Teams couldn't meet payroll. Okay, I mean, it just doesn't work. The XFL, though, they came out yesterday and they announced their teams and their logos for their inaugural season. And they did get something right. This is just naming your team 101. And although I will tell you that, no, I don't want the NC State athletic teams to change their teams to the Wolf Packs, that maybe they are a happy exception to the rule. No. You must have, your team has to end in an S. Okay, that's just the way it is. Possible exception of Boston Red Sox, Chicago White Sox. Okay, the nickname needs to end in an X. An S, not an X. Or it could in the Red Sox or White Sox. But not the Maniacs. I'll get to that in a sec. Now, we can discuss where the XFL is putting their teams. And we can even discuss, what does Los Angeles have to do with the Wildcats? But you know what? What does Los Angeles have to do with the lakes of Minnesota? Or for that matter, the trolley-dodging pedestrians of Brooklyn? Nothing. Nothing at all. Los Angeles teams tend to be named poorly, You got a town as cosmopolitan as Los Angeles, and they have to go to the other cities, for a nickname. Blasphemous, but that's the way it's worked out, right? And all this, yes. But there's a deal. At least it passes this test. When I grow up, I want to be a Wildcat. At least it passes that test. And it isn't taking on of another location that the franchise ought to be in the first place. When I grow up, I want to be a Jazz. Said no boy ever. At least none with any grammatical acumen. So instead of trying to be hip and cool with failing nicknames, like the XFL used to do, they had the Hitmen. They had the Extreme. Really? The Rage. Should a verb really be the nickname? And of course, yes, the Memphis Maniacs that did end in an X, and I know that the Red Sox and the White Sox are, named after an X, that's something, the Utica Blue Sox, whatever. But guys, I mean, the only reason they were called the Maniacs was because, they couldn't figure out a nickname that would end in a Z, or they were afraid that would be too gangsta. Let's face that. That's the way it was. Now, we can discuss what Battle Ox have to do with St. Louis, what Vipers have to do with Tampa, what Dragons have to do with Seattle, and Guardians have to do with New York. But I'll tell you what, at least Dragons, that's a universal, mascot, nickname. I mean, we can see where that could go. Dragons is a good nickname. Okay? Washington, it's where the Pentagon is, so DC Defenders does make sense. Something to do with the city. That's what I like. I don't necessarily think a nickname has to be, the Killers. I think that, the St. Louis Cardinals. It's a nickname of beauty. I mean, why not? I think it's great. And you know what else? Texas. Dallas Renegades, Houston Roughnecks. That sounds just enough Texas to fit in. Just again, I don't know what Seattle has to do with dragons, but Dallas Renegades. It's no worse than Dallas Mavericks. Now, here's the deal, though. The best thing about all these things is the logo of the Houston Roughnecks. Basically, it's the old Oilers logo. It's an oil derrick. I mean, they've incorporated, it's a little bit different, but no, it's an oil derrick. And it's wonderful. And it's so wonderful, I wonder if somebody in Nashville is calling their lawyer right now. But that would be the worst taste in the world for the Titans to ever do. I mean, how can you sue when the logo isn't in use anymore? And for that matter, I mean, the New York Jets used to be the Titans, so you're taken from that. I mean, are you really going to call up some lawyer and say, you can't use that, Houston Roughnecks? We took it away from those people, and we never use it again, and we're going to keep it in the garbage can. I mean, come on. You want to do a bad PR move, NFL? Yeah, just go after the Houston Roughnecks logo. Yeah, it is the old Oilers logo with a little bit of a twist. That's why it could be successful. Now, it's also of note that the franchises, with the exception of St. Louis, are all in pretty big markets. This is different from the Alliance, where, they were in Birmingham, Salt Lake City, San Diego, Orlando. Well, where aren't there NFL teams? Let's put them in there, this sort of thing. Instead, they want to be in media markets so that they'll get the attention in those media markets. The New York Daily News, they're going to have to, have a beat writer go cover the Guardians. And that's good. That's real good for marketing. I think that you do, if you're starting up a football league like this, have to have a presence at least in some major markets. So the only city in the XFL to start that doesn't have an NFL team, if you're thinking, we'll be your alternative to the NFL, we love you, it's St. Louis. And they should have an NFL team, but they'll have an XFL team. It won't be as good as even the worst NFL team, but so what? And 7 of the top 11 TV markets in the country will be represented by the XFL. St. Louis is the exception. They're the 21st largest TV market. They are also, if you look at it, spread around the country. They're basically trying to make them regional franchises. Now, I do wonder if the South, let's just say the Tri-Cities, Tennessee, because we're here, are you really going to get into a team that's in Tampa, that's in Texas, that's in St. Louis, the way you would if the franchise was located, certainly in Tennessee, but let's say Georgia, like the Braves, or North Carolina, which, for whatever reason, I'm not sure the Panthers or the Hornets have really caught on that much in the Tri-Cities, but, I can see people rooting for Charlotte before I can see them rooting for Tampa, Texas, or St. Louis around here. Simple matter of geography, that's all. That's all. And I can see that happening also in places like, say, North Carolina, but also Virginia, South Carolina, wherever, Georgia for that matter. So I can see that, can't you? It's just that the ownership structure of the XFL dooms it to failure, and it really needs to be changed. And you know what? Vince McMahon's ego, do you think that even if, he says, okay, arena football started off, league owned all the franchises, and they realized it didn't work, and so then they got individual owners for all the teams. But the problem was, by then, there had already been a problem. By year 2, the league champion did not return from League 1. By League 3, the games were all pretty much played on neutral sites. And by, year 4, you did have the individual owners of the teams. But by year 5, in arena football, none of the original teams existed anymore. That's one of the reasons why arena football has been, you just think, arena football, is that still around? Yeah, they just had their championship about a week and a half ago. But, yeah, there's no AFL2. Indoor football is not what it once was, and it's gone through peaks and valleys. And one of the reasons why is it didn't have the initial stability. Now, do you think Vince McMahon really wants, you know what, yeah, let's have owners in the various cities and they'll be committed to the cities. So even if, the last place team, and Seattle, let's just say, they're still going to say, we're committed to football in Seattle, we'll take our losses here, but we want to be, the men about town, that, businessman that because he owns a local sports franchise. We want to make this successful. If you want to be that, and that's a guy who's committed to his town. Now, if it's just a league and a team has drawn 5,000 fans a game and they're in last place, it's like, well, Seattle, that's a bad thing. Where do we move this team? Well, let's go to Portland. That sort of thing. That's what you'd get. And that's what arena football did. And that's why it's up and down. XFL could do the same thing. And do you really think that Vince McMahon wants to sell, say, Seattle to, whoever? Bill Gates. I don't think, but, do you really think that Vince McMahon wants to share an equal stage or listen to what Bill Gates has to say? Consider the man's ego. Here's the other thing that I think can doom the XFL. They just signed Landry Jones, who used to be a backup quarterback for the Steelers. I remember another backup quarterback for the Steelers. He finally got a chance to play one year. His name was Cliff Stout. And that year that he became the Steelers starter, he threw 12 touchdown passes and 21 interceptions. Somehow, some way, Steelers won their division that year. Steel curtain defense was pretty good, folks. But you look at that, and then, he wasn't popular. He realized, he signed with the USFL. Steelers didn't want to pay him big money after that year, so he signed with the USFL. And in 2 years in the USFL, he threw 60 touchdown passes, and he didn't even throw 30 interceptions. And when that happened, that's when I stopped watching the USFL as a kid, because I said, look, if Cliff Stout is excelling in this league, it can't be very good. And frankly, I've got a little bit of, if Landry Jones does well in the XFL, how good can it be? Nathan Peterman winds up there. Everybody seems to hate Nathan Peterman. Johnny Manziel, same thing. It's going to be like, you want to talk that era? There's a ball player by the name of Alan Nicely. Played parts of 5 seasons in the big leagues. He's a third-string catcher. He hit 6 home runs. He's a .213 lifetime hitter. But in AAA, after those 6 years in the big leagues, he hit 33 home runs one year, led all of minor league baseball. But you see, it wasn't the same level. Yeah, third-string catcher in the big leagues could be a 33 home run a year man in the high minors. And so that's what, like, if Landry Jones comes in, oh, good, it's the Oklahoma Landry Jones. No, he's doing it against AAA competition. That's what it's going to be thought of as. And that's going to hurt the XFL. But at least the nicknames will not insult our good taste. It's at least one thing the XFL is doing right that its unsuccessful predecessor didn't. Marky Billson, Tri-City Sports Now.
All American savings at Neighbor.